Hello and welcome to Wild on 6TV, the Oxford Channel. I'm Sasha Norris and it's mid-January and you probably think there's nothing worth stepping outside for. Well, you're wrong, because in the forest there's a whole fairyland of elfin creatures waiting to be discovered. And I'm joined by Sarah Mansbridge and Peter Creed from the Nature Bureau in Newbury to help me find them. Come on! Come on! Come on, Peter! They're getting excited about the things that are growing on the drive, on the tarmac. What's going on, Peter?
Oh, just looking at the moss down here. This little one with a silvery. Can you see it's silver on the ends?
Most people wouldn't even think this was a habitat, but there's something thriving in a little niche here.
Everywhere nature can make a home, even when humans smother the earth with tarmac. These little mosses have nestled themselves in between the bits of gravel and are even now planning to take over the world again. Right, come on.
We've got two different species of mosses.
If you just glance over the grass in here, it does get me very excited.
Come on, let's show us which one is.
If you just scan over the grass, you can see that there's all different shades.
So
you've got
here. Yeah.
You've got
This
this
one's got a bit
cultivated
more
grass
bronzy
species all over
colour
here,
in
and
it.
you've got shadings of light and dark green, all different patches of mosses, which are growing in mats. If you look down here,
Most people don't like moss, Sarah. They sort of think it's the curse of their perfect lawn.
yes,
But
exactly.
you like the subtle shading.
They're
of
actually
light.
very exciting. If you look
Yeah.
down here, we've got one called sclerosis. And if you look, you can see the squarose leaves. They're sort of curving right over.
No, hang on, let's have a look. Can you get that? What's it called?
Sclerosis.
And this is a moss. And it's got a very long name. And it makes you very excited. What else have we got? What are we looking at here, Sarah?
This is a small-leaved lime. This is Tilia cordata, which is a very interesting indicator species in ancient woodland, but here it's just been planted for ornamental use. A characteristic species is obviously the lovely red ends of the shoots that have come up in the springtime. So,
That's characteristic, is it?
well, there's not many other species that are doing that, so we'll use that as a field character.
What it is the sap is rising. So although it looks like this tree has got no leaves on it, it's just standing there being cold, actually what this tree is doing is gearing itself up for the spring, ready to produce its sexual organs, isn't it, really? And start having sex.
And it's vegetative leaves for
and
the
it's
whole
leaves.
growth of the tree throughout
The
the
new,
year.
yeah. It's not lying there doing nothing, its sap is rising in January. And that's what the red is. Sap rising. Come on.
We should have done.
Come
this
on, Louis.
Valentine's Day,
I know, sorry, I'm obsessed, aren't I? Yeah, sorry. I've already lost Peter. We should run off there to look at the catkins. Come on. Now look. I know I keep being crude about this, but it's kind of true, isn't it? That it really is all about sex with plants, isn't it? What are catkins, Peter?
Catkins are the male flowers of the hazel tree. This is a hazel here.
They've dried out a bit on here, but the female flowers are bright pink, and it's the styles that are just poking out the edge of these buds that look like leaf buds. So later on in the year, these will form the hazelnuts.
So they'll be fertilised by pollen from the male
From the
flower
male.
here.
Yeah.
Will go to there. Will they fertilise themselves or will they fertilise other trees?
Well, it's wind pollinated, so the pollen will go, quite a distance and
Yeah.
go to other trees.
Okay. So in this little batch, they might sort of pollinate each
Yeah.
other or pollinate.
Yeah, it's there's at least one or two trees there.
So they sort of make love with sort of a lot on the wind, really.
Mm.
They get sort of travel on the wind and then they land on another tree over the other side of
Yeah.
the wood, and then they fertilise her flower. This little pink tutu is stuck on the end of the female flower, and then they form a hazelnut.
These, will form a hazelnuts.
Now, is the hazel tree early, or are most trees coming into
The hazel is
It's a
probably
flower.
one of the first ones to appear. In fact, normally you can spot the catkins late November, early December, and normally in mid to late January, early February, the catkins are fully out then.
So this is their time.
This is their time, yeah.
Okay, and it takes them then all year up until, well, all 6 months or so until they'll form their nuts.
Yeah.
And we can eat them as kind of squirrels and other woodland creatures.
Did you see that? You could just see the pollen come out then. You flick them. It's not windy today, but
You can see the pollen. Oh yeah.
yeah, you see it.
Look, we can shove it
I think I'll-
Here's another kind of fern, but not a very good specimen really, is it, Peter?
No, this is male fern.
Male fern.
Male fern. Male.
Its name is male fern. How do you
male
spell
fern.
that?
Male. M-A-L-E. There's a
M-A-L-E.
male and a lady fern.
Oh, I see. Okay.
This is the male fern.
And there's another species.
Triopteris felix mass.
Triopteris felix mass.
They're very different on here. Instead of in lines, they're in little circles,
There we
also
are.
running either side of the main vein there.
Little blobs.
Yeah.
Like Christmas at Christmas. So this
No,
isn't
they're,
our
they're
common.
little round ones, aren't they? And the lady fern's got little crescent shaped
Yeah. That's a main
ones.
identifying
Yeah.
feature of ferns, is looking at the shape of their
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a male and a female fern, or does it? I mean, within a male fern, are there two different types, or are
No,
are-
no, no. It's just.
Do ferns have sex? Is the question I'm trying to ask, really.
Well, I mean, they're like most other ferns, aren't they? The reproduction is the same as the heartstone fern. you
Yeah.
looked
They
at earlier.
produce their spores.
It's
So
just that-
each plant produces some spores and sends them off into the world in the water and hopes that they grow up into fine, strong young ferns that go to university and
Yeah.
get a good, honest job and but never actually get married, do they? Because they sort of do it themselves. We've left the British woodland behind, and here Sarah and I are exploring the forests of the Mediterranean. Is that true, Sarah?
Not quite. We're looking at Rhododendron ponticum here, which is an invasive introduction from parts of the Mediterranean.
That means someone bought it here and let it go into our countryside.
They brought it in for ornamental use in their estates, and they also used it for game cover.
So
in their
pheasants can hide in it.
Yeah. But now it's sort of spread throughout the countryside, and the New Forest is a fine example where it's spread and been quite a problem, outcompeting some of the native species.
So it's aggressive,
It's very aggressive, yes.
it's tough. It's difficult to get rid of it
Yeah.
once you put it there.
Although it's very attractive, so some people like it and even buy cultivated varieties for their gardens still.
It has purple flowers,
This species has purple flowers, yeah.
but it's also evergreen,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's got its leaves on it even though we're in mid-Jan.
Yeah.
It doesn't give up, does it?
No.
It stomps through the countryside, it leaves its leaves on the ground, nothing eats it, creates a desert underneath it, but it had its uses one day, I guess. Back to the woodland. So Sarah, where's Peter?
I'm afraid he's foraging for fungi over there.
You can see him. Peter, are you lost in the forest? Who lives here? The moss lives here. Look, this is the place of ancient Britain. This is our prehistory. This tree took probably 100 years to grow this branch, and then it's fallen down, and it'll take another 30 to rot down. And meanwhile, all the creatures are inhabiting its surface, this moss. Now, I'm sure Sarah will have something to tell us about this lovely moss. This is the place of the little grey men and Tolkien's hobbits and Brambly Hedge and Enid Blyton.
Yeah, you can just see how things are just starting to come up now. I mean, we've had a good few warm days in winter, and already, life is starting all over again.
Who are these guys?
Well, we've got goosegrass here, cleavers,
Yeah.
which climbs up and scrambles over other parts, but that's already well in leaf and now
On its
starting
way.
to come up.
This is goosegrass. Who else have we got coming up here? This is
We've got ground ivy,
ground ivy here.
just there.
Ground ivy, this
There's a
one.
nice marsh thistle starting to appear there, very spiky in the centre.
Okay, so we need. This is marsh
Thistle.
thistle. This is ground ivy here.
Yeah, and we've got goosegrass or cleavers.
This is
That one,
goosegrass.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not all dead and dying in January.
No,
time.
it's all starting to happen. It's all starting to get ready for its spring.
It lifts the
push.
spirits, really, doesn't it, Peter? To know that,
Yeah.
you know,
January is much nicer than December.
Yeah.
December's really quite,
dark
cold.
and drear.
Not much, but in January, after the shortest days gone, it really all starts to come to life
To
again.
pop up. Spring is coming. Summer is coming.
Yeah, no, that's
Come on.
cleavers.
Join us after the break for more merry midwinter mayhem. Oh, don't let's roll on the snowdrops, Lynn. Come on. Polytrichum. Polytrichum. As in polytrichum. As in many hairs. Tufts. Isn't it beautiful?
And we know why now.
Why?
Just
Why?
remembered.
On the top of the capsule, it's very hairy around the cap. It's very obvious when you see it fruiting in the summer.
It's like
Ah,
all
so
matted together, isn't it?
Yeah.
it's not because of these little spikes
No,
that
it's
it's
nothing
called.
to do with the vegetative part of the shoot.
Okay.
But in woodlands you get Polytrichum formosum and also Polytrichum commune in the very wet areas.
This one's
They're getting
formosa.
Yeah, this.
I figured out why it's called polytrichum, many hairs, because in the spring, in the summer, there's lots of hairs around the fruiting part. Is that right?
on the capsule itself. Yeah.
And when the less said about that, the better. Right.
And lichens.
Look, if you were a fairy, you'd just love to be lovely.
Yeah.
That would be a nice sofa for you, wouldn't it?
So that's another species of moss.
Oh, again.
Yeah, I've got lots and lots.
Oh, really? Come here, quick.
Another nice fern.
Do you want to look?
Quite
Purple
different
bit
than
like-
the other ferns we've seen. Nothing like bracken. There's a load of it all the way down this bank, going all the way down here.
Now, what's interesting about ferns is that lots of them have had a few problems, haven't they? Because they've been over-collected by the
They were
Victorians,
over-collected by the
who was
Victorians,
excited by their beauty and
Yeah.
collected them zealously to make little glass houses in their gardens, little fern houses. And luckily, they've sort of been left alone of recent years and been protected and allowed to come back. But you can see why they wanted to collect them, can't you? They look like they're more beautiful than any houseplant. And they're British and they're
Yeah.
native.
And now we've got some alder growing as it should right by a stream or water. And it's another catkin bearing tree with male and female flowers, and it's only just starting to come out now, but the male flowers are these larger ones which will eventually get to about the same length as the catkins on a hazel, but is much more of a kind of bronzy reddy colour.
That's quite interesting. What have we got hanging down? Is that a beech tree hanging down here? Because there's a nut.
There's a beech, yeah.
There's a beech nut,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
was thinking, see, this is how that was why it's so difficult with trees. Hanging down here, sort of mingling in with this alder. There's a beech here, and there's a beech nut left over from last year. It's just come from my hand,
Yeah.
and actually the nut's actually fallen out. It's just the shell there, the outer. What would you call it in a carapace?
Case.
Case, the outer case.
Nut case.
The nut case.
A bit later.
It's great fern, isn't it? It's great. Bracken. It's still got that brackeny smell. And it was used. I mean, actually, if we just go over here, and I just go like this, it's actually quite comfortable, Peter.
Yeah.
And it was actually used as a bedding for cattle and for, in fact, for humans at various times. Hello, Reeve. You're the perfect colour for the bracken. Yes. Ah, it's nice. I'll see you later. Peter? Sarah? Come on, we better go find them. Woo. Can we identify some of these different trees that we're looking at here from their shapes?
Yeah, well the large ones with a very twisted,
Right here?
gnarled, yeah,
Yeah.
gnarled shapes. They're oaks, and
Okay.
they really kind of get massive out in parkland or as hedgerow trees. Their trunks become massive.
Because they're allowed to sort of spread and they're not in
yeah.
competition with any other.
Whereas if it was in high forest, they'd be much thinner stemmed and very straight, with all of the branches would be much higher up.
Up at the top. Can we see any other species of tree out there that we can show people?
Well, there's
What's that
looks like
far?
some beaches right over in the distance.
Sort of a clump of beeches.
Yeah.
And how do you know they're beeches?
Well, you can actually you can see one there. Very smooth bark. You see the very large tree on the horizon line.
The sort of with a
very
silvery grey bark.
Yeah, well, it's not really kind of silver, but it's very grey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beech.
Up there we can also see cedars,
Yeah.
can't we? There on the
In fact, we've only got, what is it, 3 native conifers?
Scots pine
juniper and yew.
and yew. Scots pine, juniper, and yew.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in this part of the country, it's only yew and juniper that are native.
And yet, if we look at this land, if we look right
We've even
from,
got monkey puzzle.
okay, so there's a monkey puzzle tree there. Now, where's that from?
That's from Chile.
From Chile.
Well, look, I mean, there's some wood sage here. This is obviously last year's growth, but this plant only really likes to grow in what they call acid woodlands. That's woodlands that are where the nutrients are really poor, kind of sandy
Right.
underneath. And growing with it, of course, we've seen earlier, this moss also likes acid woodlands. So these two plants growing together are indicative of that type of woodland.
We're in
Yeah.
Berkshire at the moment, North Berkshire, and it's telling us what kind of soil
Lots
is
of
underground.
heathland around in this part of Berkshire,
Yeah.
and the woodlands tend to be acid as well. Then it's the same type of soil.
Okay, so it's sandy, so that means that all the nutrients, as you say, are leached away. The rain goes through the sand and takes with it all the nutrients, and then what's left,
Sands and gravels.
the plants have to be adapted to deal with that. Peter, I think there might be a fairy over there. Look. Oh, look. There is Lily. There's a fairy, look, sitting on top of that toadstool.
Yeah.
There's lots of this. In fact, this is a place for fairies to have a conference, isn't it, Peter?
Yeah, these are little
Who's that?
ink caps, the ones that eventually will dissolve away into a black inky mass, you know.
Yeah.
So, and this one likes growing in nice little tufts, clumps like this.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah.
Is it fruiting at this time of year?
Yeah, these are the fruits
These
of
are
the
the
fungus. Yeah.
So we normally associate fungi with the autumn.
With
but
autumn, but any time from if the weather's mild and damp and humid, then they'll come up, and we've had hardly any frosts. You know, very mild winter, so fungi can continue right through then.
Come on, let's go and find some more fairies. Come on.
Oh, we've got a non-native oak here as well.
Oh yeah.
This is not a British oak at all. This is probably Turkey oak, which is American.
Right. What's it
Completely
doing
different
here, Peter?
word, they've been planted.
It's been planted here.
So it's got much more raggedy, jagged leaf than.
But do you think
native
this one's
oaks.
been planted, or do you think, in fact, it's sort of been planted somewhere else? We're right next to a piece of parkland, aren't we?
Yeah,
But it could have been
so-
planted.
Yeah,
And then it sort of found its own way.
Mm.
The seed has
Yeah.
escaped. And
but it's definitely a non-native. oak.
non-native, yeah, it's too raggedy, isn't it, the leaves? They're not like our... Come on, you. You're all right. You're all right, little mink. Going round then, looking at... On this side of us, we've got woodland. On that side of us, we've got parkland. So first of all, within the woodland then, Peter, that's a Scots pine, right?
Scots pine there, single Scots pine.
And we know that because...
Because the bark is pinky red towards the top.
Towards the top, and it's lost most of its branches
Yeah,
towards the bottom.
Towards the base, yeah.
Okay, and then we've got mostly oak trees, haven't
Mostly
we?
oak trees, large, straight stemmed oaks here because we're in woodland.
Okay, and then we've got a clump here of
Spruces.
spruce trees, and you know that because you've got the little notches coming right down to the ground.
Where the stems join onto the trunk.
Right, and that's indicative of spruce?
That's a spruce that does that, yeah.
Spruce that do that. Okay, and moving round then, we've got a kind of lot of young trees there.
A lot of young trees.
A
We've got one
mixture.
silver birch over there.
Silver birch, oak,
Oak again. And we've got, it looks like we've got
lots of beech.
we've got some beech, yeah.
Beech
Some
and
beech
another
there.
oak at the back there.
Spots.
And here we've got a nice beech tree, and we can tell that it's a beech tree because it's got the smooth bark
Very smooth bark.
as opposed to the rough bark of the oak
Of
in
the
the
oak.
foreground here. So look, the one behind is a beech, smooth, straight, as opposed to the oak in the foreground. Anything else that tells us that it's beech? The angle of the branches going off,
A lot of the branches on a beech tree will come
like that,
go up like that, yeah,
Yeah.
rather than
like that, which
like
is an
that.
oak.
Yeah.
So this is a beech, and this is an oak. Yes, that's beautiful actually.
and all
the little
normally
cones.
water, they don't actually mind getting wet.
Look,
They can withstand
Got it.
inundation.
branches going right
Yeah.
down its trunk. And these are all the little cones that are the
No,
equivalent of its
yeah.
hazelnuts. They're not actually cones, but they look
Yeah,
like cones.
They look like cones. And they used to make clogs out of all the trees
Right, why is that?
because the wood doesn't rot.
Right.
You know, it does rot eventually, but it's not so
It's evolved to live on water,
on
and
water
therefore
or
it's
near
good
water, so it'll
at not
it'll-
rotting.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But the point is not to remember all the complicated scientific names of these species. The point is to have a relationship with nature. Every time I come out here, I see something new. I see the trees developing in different ways, the catkins coming, the seeds coming, the leaves poking out, the buds starting to develop. Every tree has its own signature shape in the winter. The way the twigs are, it just looks like modern art. It looks like Mondrian, it looks like Chagall, it looks like Picasso. It's beautiful. And that's why I want you to keep watching Wild. Not because I want you to remember weird, complicated scientific names of lichens or mosses, but because I want you to love nature, because it brings so much to my life, it brings so much to your life, and it needs your love to protect it. This is Sasha Norris for 6TV Wild. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.